welcome to George on Cars. Today, I've got an amazing video. I'm going to be reviewing my wife's 2018 BMW X4. But before we get to the video, let me tell you a little bit about this month's charity of the month. And if you're enjoying the content on the channel, I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, as it really helps the channel get some visibility, and it only takes a second. And by the way, if there's any content you want to see on the channel, send me an email at georgeoncars@gmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe if you can. Thanks a lot. This month's charity of the month is the Canadian Mental Health Association. Now, the CMHA provides advocacy, resources, and help to prevent mental health problems and illness. They support recovery, resilience, and they enable all Canadians to flourish and thrive. They're a great organization, so check out their website, which has some amazing information. You can even make a small donation if you like. Thanks a lot for supporting this great charity, and I hope you enjoy the video. The BMW X4 is a 5-door, 5-passenger, 2-row compact SUV, or a sports activity coupe as BMW calls it, that BMW has produced since 2014. The base price for a 2021 X4 is around $56,000 Canadian, but can go over $110,000 Canadian for a loaded X4M competition model. The first generation X4 was produced from 2014 to 2018 and then was completely redesigned for the 2019 model year. The SUV has been a pretty good seller for BMW, selling between 50 and 60,000 units per year. The X4 sits just below the bigger X6 in the BMW lineup, and in 2018 it came in 2 major trim levels. The X4 28i, which has a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine and all-wheel drive, and the M40i, which has a 3-liter 6-cylinder engine that is also turbocharged and has all-wheel drive. Now, the vehicle I'm going to be reviewing here today is a 2018 BMW X4 28i xDrive. This vehicle has the cold weather package, heated front and rear seats, a heated steering wheel, blind spot monitoring system, lane departure warning, the 8.8-inch navigation screen and system, heads-up display, a Harman Kardon stereo, Nevada leather, which I highly recommend, and it also includes 4 years of free maintenance, which is really nice. But the odd thing on this car is there's no remote start available, which is kind of odd in 2018. Now, the sticker price on this vehicle when it was new just 3 years ago was over $60,000, but you can find these on Auto Trader or Car Gurus with similar options for around $30,000 to $40,000. Overall, I love the exterior styling of the X4, and I'm a big fan of these fastback style SUVs. Now, I know a lot of automotive journalists like Doug DeMiro and Chris Harris aren't fans of these things, but I think they look great, and they're worth the small sacrifice in practicality over their traditional SUV counterparts. I really like the bold, chunky look of this X4, and the sharp, aggressive contour lines make it look really sporty. That and the fastback roofline really make it look nice. On the front end of the car, the first thing you'll notice is the traditional BMW logo that they have used with only minor changes since BMW was founded. You'll also notice the traditional kidney grille that BMW has been known for, and on this vehicle it's sized right. On some of the new BMW models, the grille is getting ridiculously large and almost cartoon-like, and in my opinion it's really becoming a styling mess. You know, for example, the front end on the 2022 X4 and several other BMW models, it almost looks like beaver teeth. The headlamps on this car, though, they're really quite cool. They're LED, and they have your traditional BMW dual cone look, and when you turn them on, they light up really cool, especially at night. The X4 also has these headlamp washers, which I always kind of find fun. On the hood of the X4, you're going to see these sharp contour lines, which add some dimension to the hood, and they give it a really nice sculpted look. Now, under the hood of the X4, you have 2 engine choices, all mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission with paddle shifting. There's the 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine, which makes 240 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. There's also a 3-liter turbocharged inline 6-cylinder, making 355 horsepower and 343 pound-feet of torque. This car here has the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which is a dual overhead cam motor with 16 valves, and for most people, that's going to be enough power. Acceleration in this vehicle is 0 to 60 is the low 6 seconds for the 2-liter turbocharged 4, and if you get the turbocharged 6-cylinder engine, you're going to go 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds. Fuel economy for these vehicles is 20 city, 28 highway for the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and 18 city, 25 highway for the inline 6. tow ratings for both engines are about 3,500 pounds for this vehicle. Moving around to the side of the X4, again, I think the styling looks great. There's a nice contour line running from the front to the back, and the coupe-like roofline makes this SUV look very sleek. The side mirrors have the marker lights neatly integrated into them, and there's also some nice cladding and contour lines at the bottom of the doors, which give the car some additional detail. The wheels on this vehicle are 19 inches by 8.5 inches, and they're wrapped in Goodyear run-flat tires. And as for the rims, I love the look of the wheels, and there's a lot of really cool details in them, and the BMW logo in the center cap is great. Now, a cool feature that I like, and many cars have, is the ability to open all the windows in the sunroof by pressing and holding the unlock button on the key fob. You just press and hold the unlock button, and the windows roll down and the sunroof opens. And that's kind of handy on a hot day. Now, another cool thing that you can do on this car that I've not seen on too many other cars is, when you want to roll the windows up and close the sunroof, you just press the top of the door handle and the windows will automatically go up and the moonroof closes. And that's pretty cool. Coming around to the back of the car, the back end of the vehicle is quite nice. It's a simple, clean design with the sloping back window with the BMW emblem located front and center. The dual exhaust tips coming out of the left side of the fascia are polished and they look tasteful, and the back end of the car isn't overly cluttered or gaudy. Now, to get into the trunk, there's 3 ways to get into the trunk by opening the liftgate. You can use this kick feature, the key fob, or the button on the door panel. And once open, you're going to find the lift over height is relatively low, and it's easy to load. The trunk is a bit small, and this is where you lose some practicality over the X3, which is on the same BMW platform. But for most people, the trunk room is going to be adequate. There's 17.7 cubic feet of space behind the rear seats. Now, you can't drop the rear seats from the trunk area, but when you do lower them, your cargo capacity goes up to 49.4 cubic feet. And there's also this neat hidden storage area under the cargo floor where you can put small items that you want to keep out of sight. Moving to the interior of the BMW, getting in and out of the X4 is easy, as the step-in height is low and it's almost car-like. The X4 doesn't sit particularly high up for an SUV, which is great for getting in and out, but you don't get the benefit of better road visibility that you would in a taller SUV. Once inside, I describe the interior as utilitarian and functional, but not overly luxurious. The front seats are firm and supportive and are heated, and I love the way they look. I like the embossed X logo on the headrest and the gray stripe down the front, but they're not overly comfortable or supportive for long trips. This vehicle has the upgraded Nevada leather, which I highly recommend over the base leatherette seat, which has a really cheap and rubbery feel. The steering wheel in this car, it has a nice rugged feel to it. It's thick and substantial without feeling too big like on some M cars, but I wouldn't describe it as soft or supple. There are functional buttons on the wheel to control the instrument cluster, cruise control, and voice-activated functions. This steering wheel is also heated by a hidden button on the side of the steering column, which is hard to locate unless you know where it is. Thankfully, on many newer BMW models, they've located that button on the front of the steering wheel itself. Also attached to the steering wheel are these paddle shifters, which have a great feel to them, even if they are little on the small side. Just to the right of the steering wheel is the start-stop button, and the auto start-stop button is right next to it, which makes turning that feature off super easy, as you don't have to scroll endlessly in some menu. Oddly enough, I've never driven a car that is so strange to turn off though. Most vehicles, you just press the start button and they turn off, and when you open the door, the radio and other auxiliary functions power off, but not on this car. You need to press the start button twice to shut off the accessories. You can change that in the menu, but that seems to be a weird default setting. The instrument cluster is clear and easy to read, and I like the simple 4-gauge analog layout. You can control some of the elements of what's displayed in the cluster by using a button on the end of the turning stalk. You can stroll through various menus for fuel economy, temperature, and navigation, which is nice. The controls for the infotainment system are what BMW calls iDrive, and it works really well. You use this iDrive controller on the console to choose and pick settings on the screen for the radio, navigation, phone, and user settings. It works like a joystick, and it has a dial and a button. The system is very quick and responsive, and I especially like the location of the unit, as it's where your right hand would naturally sit. The navigation system is also really good. I did some searches using the voice command, and the system recognized them on the first try. The screen is very clear, and the resolution is good. In addition to searching for locations with your voice, you can also spell them out on top of the iDrive controller, which is really cool, but not all that practical when you're driving. Again, the iDrive controller comes in very handy here and allows you to access various navigation settings and zoom in and out of maps easily. The radio on the X4 works well enough, it's simple to use, and the sound from the Harman Kardon system is good. The iDrive controller makes using the radio very enjoyable and allows you to find and change stations easily and quickly. One odd feature of the radio, though, is the volume button. I have never seen a volume button this tiny, and you really have to turn it a lot to move the volume up or down. The backup camera in the X4 is nice and large, and it has the backup lines which make parking and backing up easier. There's also a front camera and 360 camera setup that is optional. The heating and ventilation controls are in the center stack, and the X4 has all the usual settings you would expect, like dual zone climate control, maximum AC, and others. The system is very simple to use, and I really like the fact that there are actual buttons to press to change the settings. There are two odd things with the system though. The first is the auto setting doesn't adjust the fan speed, which I found kind of strange, and the other is this little thumb wheel in between the two vents on the center of the car. According to the owner's manual, this varies the temperature in the upper body region of the vehicle, but doesn't change the set interior temperature for the driver or the passenger. Moving downward, the center console has a nice storage area for a cell phone, a 12-volt power outlet, and two cup holders with a door that slides closed. Next to the cup holders is a traditional BMW shift lever and several buttons to control various settings. There's a traction stability control button, drive mode selector, hill descent, the parking sensor switch, the parking brake button, and the auto hold button for those people who get tired of keeping their foot on the brake at a stoplight. And to the right of those buttons is the iDrive controller. The armrest on the X4 is soft touch leather and very comfortable, and when you open it, it has a USB plug, an auxiliary plug, and a 12-volt outlet. It's not huge, but it can hold several moderately sized items like a few cell phones, a wallet, or a small purse. The passenger side of the car is pretty anticlimactic. There's a glove box that opens nicely and is felt-lined, and it's decently large for a car in this category. Getting in and out of the back of the X4 is okay, and the seats are pretty comfortable. They're wide and supportive, and come with heated bottoms. There's a decent amount of legroom and hip room, and some storage areas in the door pocket, but there's no storage at all on the back of the front seats. Headroom is a little bit tight for taller adults and for 3 people, and the back seat can get a little bit snug. When you're not using the middle seat, there's a nice fold-down armrest with 2 cup holders, and for 2 people back here, it's reasonably comfortable. There's also 2 large vents with a temperature controller and a fan speed selector to keep the rear passengers comfortable. But there is no 12-volt outlet or charging ports for devices, which could be problematic on long road trips. Okay, so here we go in the 2018 BMW X4. And first impressions of the interior are, interior is pretty utilitarian, as I mentioned before. The build quality is good, the panel gaps are good. This thing is bolted together tight. You're going to find there's no panel gaps and there's no squeaks, no rattles as you would expect in somewhat of a newer vehicle, but there's 65,000 kilometers on this car, and you really don't get any squeaks and rattles. The quality of the materials, though, is probably a little bit below what you'd get in Mercedes or, say, an Alfa Romeo. But the materials, even though they're not as luxurious, they feel pretty durable and looks like they're going to last a long time. Gauge layout on the X4 is really nice. I really like analog gauges. They're black on white, easy to read, easy to use, very clear. And again, as I've mentioned in several videos before, I'm a fan of analog gauges, and these ones look nice and elegant. Overall room on the interior of this vehicle, the front seats are pretty roomy. The back can be a little bit tight if you're over 6 feet tall, but the front seats are pretty roomy. I've got plenty of headroom, leg room, elbow room. The one thing you're going to find probably a little disappointing in this car is the seat comfort is probably a little less than what I expected it would be. The seats are pretty firm, and they're not overly comfortable for long rides. I mean, they look great. They've got the X logo embossed on the headrest, and this is the upgraded Nevada leather in this car, but they're not overly comfortable for long rides.
Exterior visibility on the X4 is, again, surprisingly good. You would expect it to be good out the front and the sides. The A-pillars are pretty thin. The blind spots aren't too bad. The place that it surprised me the most that it was good was probably out the rear. I was expecting that fastback roof line to inhibit the rear view, but it's actually pretty good, and it's pretty easy to see out the back. Ride comfort on this vehicle. The ride comfort is, it's not overly comfortable. I mean, I've played with the different drive settings. I've put it in Sport, Sport Plus, Comfort, and Eco, and even in Comfort, it's not super comfortable. The suspension is stiff. There's not a lot of road noise or wind noise, and it's not overly loud in this vehicle at all. But I do find the suspension is tuned for performance, and this vehicle does have run flat tires, which probably contributes to the harsher ride. Steering feel in the X4. The steering feels nice. It's direct. It's properly weighted. I wouldn't say it's overly light or overly heavy, but it feels good in both city driving and on the highway. It has a nice direct feel to it. I actually enjoy the steering on this vehicle quite a bit. All right, so the acceleration in the X4 is surprisingly good. And just like that, we are at the speed limit. Man, for the base car, this thing really moves quickly. And the 4-cylinder turbocharged engine in the X4 is surprisingly good. It's really smooth. It develops good power. It's torquey. It's surprisingly linear considering it's turbocharged. I can only imagine what stepping up to the bigger 6-cylinder turbocharged engine would be like, or going to the X4M, which must just be totally bonkers in this car. But for most people, this engine choice is going to be more than enough power and performance for you. The transmission in this vehicle is another spot that is really impressive. The upshifts are quick, the downshifts are quick. It's a pleasure to use the paddles in this car. Usually I find paddle shifting in SUVs kind of more of a gimmick than anything else, but the paddles work really well with this transmission, and considering it's not a dual clutch, it's really impressive how fast and how well it shifts. Handling is another spot in this vehicle that is impressive, and it should be, because you make that trade-off for the harsher ride and you expect that you're going to have better handling, and you're not disappointed because you are getting better handling. And the handling in this vehicle is very good. It's comparable to probably most sports sedans that you're going to drive and be in. And I think that's why you're starting to see the transition from sedans to SUVs like this, where you're getting probably 90 to 95% of the performance of a sedan in an SUV like this, but you're getting more practicality because it's an SUV. You're having more interior room, you're having more trunk space, you're sitting up higher so you get a better view of the road, and again, I think that's what's causing the, I don't want to call it the demise, but definitely the transition from sedans to SUVs. Getting back to the handling of this vehicle though, again, handles really well. There's not a lot of body roll, not a lot of dive, and when you put it into these sports settings like the Sport, Sport Plus, it really does change the character of the car. Sport Plus is going to hold the gear a little longer. It's going to hold the transmission and gear a little longer. I didn't really notice too much of a difference in the steering or the suspension. Now, the suspension to me has always been pretty firm, so I didn't really notice a change in the suspension, but I definitely noticed a change in the gearing. And again, the handling here is really impressive.
So overall, I think the X4 is a great SUV with beautiful styling, nice handling, and good practicality. I also really like the fact that the maintenance is free for the first 4 years of ownership, which saves you a few bucks. Now, if you're looking at buying one of these X4s used, I'd highly recommend that you get the extended warranty if you can, as repairs on these can be really expensive when the car's out of warranty. And if you're looking for an X4, some other vehicles you might want to consider are the Mercedes GLC Coupe, the Porsche Macan, the BMW X3, Audi Q5, and the Alfa Romeo Stelvio is a really nice product to consider as well. Well, that's it. That's my review of the 2018 BMW X4. Thanks for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe. But more importantly, support the charity of the month if you can. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next video.